Hi, my name is Kerry MacGregor. I'm a Canadian author and co-author of the Ice Chips book series for kids, but I'm living in France. So I, like many of you, am stuck inside my home and I've decided to do some readings while I'm here. This series is written by me, Kerry MacGregor, and Roy MacGregor, my father. It's illustrated by Kim Smith and it's published by HarperCollins Canada. I'm going to read the first chapter. And I should probably, before I do that, tell you a little bit about the story. The Ice Chip series is about a hockey team, and a few of the hockey players, a few books back, went and discovered a small ice resurfacing machine hidden in their rink. It looks like a ride-on lawnmower, like it was pieced together, but when it goes around the rink, it makes a perfect sheet of ice. The most beautiful ice these kids have ever seen. Irresistible ice. So they step onto the ice and they skate across the center line, and what happens is they go traveling through space and time. At the beginning they have no idea this is what's going to happen, but later on they start to realize that this is a pretty neat trick. When they go back into the past, they meet hockey players, well-known hockey players that you might know now, but they go and meet these hockey players back when they were kids. So this is Chapter 1, Riverton, which is the Ice Chips town. Edge cringed as feedback from the hockey announcer's microphone bounced off the boards and echoed across the Riverton Community Arena. "Ice Chips goal by number 17, Ekamjeet Singh!" The large crowd in the far corner of the rink, the Ice Chips family and friends, cheered wildly. The rest of the people in the arena either clapped quietly or openly booed. "Assisted by number 97, Lucas Finnegan, and number 33, Nika Bertrand." The applause grew louder when it was announced that Nika had an assist, a rare accomplishment for a goaltender. Nika, known as Swift to her teammates, had caught a long wrist shot, dropped the puck onto her own stick blade, and fired it hard to center ice. That's where Lucas Top Shelf Finnegan had snared it, carried it over the blue line, and dropped it to his line mate, Ekamjeet, also known as Edge. Edge then used a nifty toe drag to fake out the defense and another one to draw out the goaltender, and finally backhanded the puck into the net as gently as if he were passing a butter tart across the table. This was Edge's new tuck play, a move he'd used to score over and over again ever since he'd seen Chicken do it when they met at the Calgary Olympics. That was on a past leap. His slick goal, his third of the game, had put the Chips up 5-4 over the Orangeville Orcas with less than 10 minutes to play in the semifinal. "Nice one!" Lucas said excitedly, patting Edge's back as the Chips' top scorer made his way to the bench to drink some water. "Yeah, nice teamwork," said Edge with a smile. He glanced up at his parents, sister, and grandmother who'd come out to watch the game. Just then, another "Boo! Boo!" erupted in the stands. Every Ice Chip on the bench knew where those boos were coming from, the mouths of Jared and Beatrice Blitz and their buddies on the Riverton Stars. That's their rival team. And here is Kim's picture. There's Ekamjeet Edge, and his parents are in the background. That is his mother, his father, and his grandmother. And that's someone booing.
And I got here.
The Chips' main rivals and the only other competitive U9 novice team in Riverton, under 9 novice team, had come out to watch this semifinal match to see which team they'd play in the final, the Orcas or the Ice Chips. And as usual, they'd brought their bad attitudes with them. "Hey, show-off," yelled a mean, nasally voice as Edge tossed his water bottle back beside the bench. "You try to score like that on us, and you're going through the boards." Edge didn't have to turn to see who was doing the yelling. It was Jared, the more annoying of the Blitz twins. None of Edge's teammates would ever call him a show-off. Matias Rodriguez, the Chips' second goalie, known as the Face, was the one who was always bragging and making jokes to get attention. Edge was more the kind of player who made sure all his teammates got a chance with the puck. Coach Small had even called him captain material. Throughout this match, the Blitz twins had been coming around the Ice Chips box, chirping and trash-talking the players. Mr. Blitz, the Stars' wealthy coach and the twins' father, didn't even seem to care what his top players were doing. They'd been picking on Edge a little more than the others today, either because of his goals or because each time he'd tapped the puck into the net, his grandmother, who'd been a hockey superfan ever since she'd moved to Canada from India, had yelled and cheered louder than anyone else in the stands. Even the Blitz twins now knew that "Maria shot kita goal" in Punjabi meant he shoots, he scores. And there was nothing that made them madder than hearing that an ice chip had shot a puck into their net, even if Edge's grandmother had called that black disc a rubber tiki in her cheers. "There's still time for losers like you to lose," Jared shouted at Edge, and then snickered along with his teammates. There were a few Stars who weren't seated with the Blitz twins, Sheena and Nolan Atlukan, another brother and sister who were coached by Mr. Blitz, seemed to be keeping their distance. Nolan, who was deaf, couldn't hear the mean things that the Blitz twins were saying, but he could read lips. Each time Jared gave Edge a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or placed his hand on his forehead in the shape of an L, Nolan gave the Ice Chips a shrug and a smile of encouragement. As Edge got back into position on the ice, he kept his head tucked down onto his chest, his face slowly burning red. The Orcas thought it was because he was shy about scoring so much. The Stars thought it was because of the booing. But only Lucas knew the truth. Edge was checking the tie on his hockey pants, afraid that while he'd been concentrating on putting the puck in the net, the laces might have come undone. Just like Lucas, Edge had a secret he didn't want anyone to know, and he wanted to make sure it stayed hidden. For Lucas, it had all happened by accident, the first time. A few weeks ago, Lucas was late for their second match in the league semifinal, a game against the Lake Placid Miracles. He'd been helping his parents clean up their store, and they'd simply lost track of time. The Chips center had to throw his stuff into the back seat of the van with lightning speed so his dad could race him to the Blitz sports complex for the game. In the back of the vehicle, Lucas scrambled to dress, twisting his body like an acrobat as he struggled to put on his hockey underclothes. He knew he'd have to put on all his equipment during the short drive if he was going to make it in time for the puck drop, all but his skates. Somehow, in the dark and confusion, and in that tight, awkward space, he'd managed to get his underwear on, followed by the rest of his equipment. Lucas arrived in the dressing room just as Coach Small was starting his pre-game speech. The coach gave him a sharp look, but without a word, Lucas hurried over and began putting on his skates. He'd made it. And then something happened during that game against the Lake Placid Miracles. The miracle, it turned out, was Lucas himself. He scored 4 goals, 2 more than Edge, and led the Chips to a 6-2 victory. Lucas had never scored 4 goals in a game. Not even in Swift's driveway when the face, who was often more interested in talking about himself than blocking shots, had come out to play net. In the dressing room after the match, as Lucas stripped off his socks, shin pads, and pants, several of the Chips had come up to fist bump or pat him on the back. Maurice Boudreau, whose hair was still sweaty from his hard work out on the ice, came over to talk. "You, made a mistake," Maurice, the big defenseman known as Slapper, said carefully. He was keeping his eyes on the ground. "What do you mean? I just played the game of my life," Lucas asked, confused. He shook his head as he tossed his hockey shorts onto his bag and reached for his regular pants. "Is Slapper still complaining that he never gets to shoot on net? Or is he jealous?" Lucas wondered. It has to be a mistake, right?" Slapper asked, smiling, as the tips of his ears turned red. Alex Stepanov, the little Russian-speaking kid called Dynamo, was soon blushing too. He was giggling and staring at Lucas's hockey pants. "Unless, is that another superstition of yours?" Slapper asked with a little giggle of his own. "I mean, what you had Under there, is that supposed to be lucky? Under what? Under where? Lucas asked, looking at his pants, still confused. Exactly, underwear, said Lars Larson, pointing at Lucas's butt. This is your superstition? Wearing underwear that's all flipped around? Lucas's cheeks turned the color of tomatoes when he looked down to see that his blue and white striped underwear, the pair he'd put on in the car, in the dark, was inside out and backwards. The most embarrassing mistake ever. And yet, he'd played such a great game. So the superstition had stuck for every single practice, every single match. Wayne Gretzky put baby powder on the blade of his stick before taping it. Patrick Roy won 4 Stanley Cups while talking to his goalposts as if they were alive and helping him. And Phil Esposito wouldn't stay in any hotel room that contained the number 13. Lucas, the Chips' now official team captain and the most superstitious kid in Riverton, had an underwear thing. And because this was the semifinals and the Chips were nearing a chance at the trophy, Lucas had made sure his best friend Edge had an underwear thing too, at least until the end of the playoffs. Underneath Edge's expensive, well-cared-for equipment and Lucas's stinking hand-me-down gear, the 2 Chips had their underwear on, inside out and backwards. The seconds ticked down on the old scoreboard clock in the Riverton Community Arena. With just under 2 minutes left in today's semi-final game, the Orcas pulled their goaltender in favor of an extra attacker and began to press hard. Swift was playing brilliantly in goal, moving side to side to stop shots as the Orcas began pounding pucks at her as hard as they could. She made glove saves, stick saves, saves when she was down on her butt and couldn't even see the shooter. It was a spectacular performance by the Ice Chips goalie. At one point, Swift blocked a hard shot and Edge gobbled up the rebound. He raced up with Lucas trailing, and everyone expected Edge to drop the puck to his teammate, who had also been having a pretty good game. Thanks to his underwear, of course. But Edge tricked them all by sending a lovely saucer pass over the stick of the last Orcas defenseman. The puck slid to Slapper, who was now in all alone with a chance to put the game out of sight. The Orcas goalie was sliding over on his pads to cover the short side, but Slapper still had room both over and under the goalie's blocker glove. He raised his stick to take the shot. All he had to do was fire the puck into the net. But he didn't do it. That's because Lucas, afraid that Slapper was taking too long, swooped in and grabbed the black disc before the defender's stick could make contact. Lucas tried to shoot the puck back to Edge, but the Orcas defenseman, who had fallen, slid over the puck and smothered it, completely by accident. Slapper banged his stick on the ice in frustration. "We could have used that," Edge said to Lucas. "Why did you take it? Slapper might have put it away." The whistle blew just as the buzzer sounded to end the semi-final game. The Ice Chips had held on, thanks to Edge, Lucas, and Slapper, and more clutch goaltending by Swift. After the on-ice handshake between the teams, the Orcas repeated the team cheer they'd hollered at the start of the game. Only this time, their hearts weren't in it. "Do we play hard? Yes! Do we play hard? Yes! Who are we? Orcas! Who are we? Orcas!" With a little less heart. The Ice Chips had just beaten them 5-4. Unsurprisingly, Edge was named first star of the game. He was roundly cheered by one corner of the rink, but loudly booed by a section on the other side of the ice. Many of Coach Blitz's players, again led by Jared and Beatrice, had also booed. This win had just put the Chips into the final against the Stars. So that is the first chapter of The Ice Chips and the Stolen Cup. That's a book by me, Kerry MacGregor, and Roy MacGregor, who's my father, illustrated by Kim Smith and published by HarperCollins Canada. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're all staying safe. Thank you.